Hello and welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. I'm here today with Celeste Moore. She is an image and identity strategist. And this didn't just happen by being a little girl and being like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be an image strategist and identity strategist. She does what she does because she has had her own journey of moving through different identities, as we all have, to find what really works for her and what really fulfills her. So, before we get started, Celeste, can you give us just a quick little rundown on what it is that you actually do?
Yeah, thank you for having me today. Excited to be here. So, right, what does identity and image strategist really mean? I am a certified master and image consultant. And as an image consultant, holistically, we help you look good and feel good on the outer appearance, making sure that's congruent with your message and work. But I went a bit deeper and make sure that I work with my clients from the inside out because I can put a beautiful color, perfect fitting suit on you. But if you're not congruent within yourself, if you're not loving or owning who you are, then it doesn't matter what I put on the outside. So we work to make sure the inside matches the outside.
It reminds me of years ago when I was bartending and I used to wear low cut shirts to make all the tips. And one of my cocktail waitresses came to work and she never wore low cut shirts, but she wore a low cut shirt. And she was like, does this look okay? And she really wanted to wear it, but she was so unsure about whether it looked okay. And I just told her, I'm like, you have to feel comfortable in it for it to work. And so, what I hear in what you're saying is that doesn't matter what the outfit is that you put on, if you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, it's not going to look the way you want it to look.
Yeah, it's who's wearing the suit. I can make you look beautiful on the outside, but that inside piece is so important that you understand authentically who you are. You understand your message to the world. And typically, I work with people in the career industry, business industry, but that translates to your social life, your relationships, the emotional psychology of how you are loving yourself and showing up in a way that's actually beautiful and for nobody else other than yourself.
Yeah. And that's very much in line with the whole Be the Wolf message and the whole Be the Wolf ethos. But you didn't just magically end up here. You had a journey. You weren't always an image strategist and strategist. Where does your story begin?
Well, how far do you want to go back? Where do you want me to take this? I can take it a few places.
Okay, so let's just, where does your journey of identity begin?
Mm.
Because I know for me, I put on a lot of different identities over the years. And of course, some of them are like obvious photographer, artist, bartender, coach, like those things. But really, the identities that I put on that were a lot deeper and really played bigger roles into how I was showing up in the world were I'm broken. I'm not enough. I have to be sexy. I have to be nice. And those were some of the identities that I tried on.
Yeah. Okay. So honestly, I've had feelings back to the womb. So my mom was a teenager when she had me,
Mm.
and there was a lot of trauma that I felt internally in the womb. I know some people are like, "What? How can you feel that?" But when I've done meditations back to the feelings of things, I've gone back to even there. But probably my earliest memories, I was about 3. So because she had me early, she went to night school, summer school, graduated early, and then she ended up going right to nursing school. So I'm a little girl, 2 years old, 3 years old, wanting the attention of my mom. I wanted her to color with me. I wanted her to interact with me. And she was studying because that's what she needed to do. And if I was the good girl and sit quietly and pretend to study with her, then I would be rewarded with something. And so I feel like that's kind of where it stemmed from. That was one identity that I kept my whole life, the
That's
good girl.
Yeah, I literally had the exact same thing. My mom was in nursing school and she would give me these worksheets to work on. And if I did them well, I would get like, oh,
Mm,
Janaea, you're so good. And I also wanted that love and that attention and adopted that good girl persona.
yeah.
As you grew up, did you switch out of that persona? Did it shift for you?
That continued as an underlying, probably baseline of everything in my life. I also had an identity that I formed about myself when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I experienced some sexualization within my family. I was exposed to things that no 4 and 5 year old should be exposed to. And due to this, that went on for years, I perceived that I was here to please men. I was here to please, again, it was another layer of the pleasing, but almost like the identity, the worthy, I was accepted if I was just agreeable and amenable. And yeah, so that turned into what was called performance. And performance was also a very big identity that I had shaped who I perceived who I was over the years. And it led me to getting divorced when I was 22 years old. I got married at 21 very early and realized that I wasn't in love with this man. I loved him because he provided security and safety at one point in my life, but that in love, that crazy feeling that, I didn't have that with him. And I remember taking off my wedding ring during school and college. So I started to go through the divorce process. But in this process, I realized that if I wanted to move out on my own, which I needed to in 48 hours, get my own apartment, probably for the first time ever, like really for the first time, 100% paying for everything, I didn't have $2,000. I was working as a waitress at Outback part time. I was in school full time. And my most important thing for me at that time was to remain in college because I just knew that I wanted my education. I didn't know why, but I was determined to have more. And it was probably due to the fact that I wanted people to take me seriously, know that I was smart, that I was more capable of things in my life. And so, because of this, I remember going to a strip club a couple months ago with my husband at the time. And I met this girl there. And I was just so curious. We were sitting down, like chatting, like you do with when you go. This was like a new experience for me. And I was just like, wow, like how much money do you make on any given night? She's like, on a really bad night, I make $500. And I was like, wow, like mind blown, right? Like I don't know, 21, 22 at the time, thinking that was just like a lot of money, what I could do with if I made $500 a day at the very least. And so I remember this conversation and I called her up and I was like, hey, Tammy, I'm getting divorced and I need a job. So can you connect me with a manager down at your club? And she was like, what? Like she knew that I was just this good girl. And she's like, "You getting divorced and now you wanna be a stripper?" And I was like, "Well, no," but that was in front of me, I thought was the only option. And when I look back at it, it was like, okay, I kind of probably reverted back to, well, I know how to perform, I know how to please others. Even if it's not truly me, I can do it to make money. And that started my journey of being able to pay my bills so I could stay in college and do the things, but it didn't really leave. It was like the one thing about dancing that actually it hurt me more than it helped because it just accentuated everything and it actually got me really jaded. And so for so long I thought men were only like the men that came in the strip club. And that's it. They were cheaters, they were liars, they just used women, had a very skewed view of men. And that lasted for a very long time. So that was another identity. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something when you said that piece about looking for the money and then reverting back to the old performance and the old identities. Like, here's this opportunity. And I say opportunity because I know at the time it doesn't feel like an opportunity. You're getting divorced and it feels like everything's kind of crumbling. But there's this opportunity to step into more of who you actually are. And it sounds like you did what I did multiple times, which was, nope, not going to do that. I'm going to revert back to this not me version, this good
Mhm.
girl version, this performance version, this sexualized version of what I already know or what the outside world has told me that I need to be. And I think for at least me, every time I did that, it was like I was setting myself up to be more imprisoned than I was before. Like I was this opportunity for more freedom, right? You were getting a divorce, but then you stepped into something that led to less freedom.
Yeah, I felt like, yes, if I look at it now,
Yeah.
I would have never been able to identify that at 22.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, was nowhere near the capacity that of the growth. Like I just didn't have the mindset. I actually, at that time, 3 months into my dancing, was slipped ecstasy in my drink for the first time. And I think I tried pot once when I was a kid. Like I didn't do drugs. I drank, right? Every here and there. And that started my journey of drug use. And so it just escalated in a lot of different areas in my life. Like, okay, well, I'm down. So let's make sure that I'm up. And it's just this lifestyle. It just sucked me in. And it doesn't do that to everybody. I really, truly feel that it means to an end. It's a job. But because of the traumas that I had, it just exacerbated everything. And so it led down a path of like self destruction and lower sense of self worth. Yeah. So when I was 25 or 26, when I quit drugs altogether, and I was like so depressed and seeing a psychiatrist and getting on depression meds. And I just knew that like I needed to step away from dancing, but I still couldn't at that time because I was paying the bills. But it kind of started to begin the journey of realizing the amount of the continued damaging effects, I would say, that it had on me. So I knew I had to get out.
Yeah. When you were at that point when you knew you needed to get out, but you felt like you couldn't. Can you talk to us about that place?
Yeah, I felt like I was in this place for a very long time because I didn't have the answers. I mean, this continued after I got my degree. The plan for me was to go to law school. And it's because I was listening to everybody else, like my parents and my boyfriend at the time. All my friends were going. Like it was just, okay, you go. It's a recognizable good job. You can always make money. But I stopped at that moment and was like, I don't think this is for me. I don't think I can take another 3 years of school and then get out and not like practice law. So I started looking into the things that brought me some joy. And it was always like dressing people and going shopping, but I still thought that was just like a hobby. And my mom was really the one, she sat me down. She's like, you should be an image consultant. And I was like, what's that? She's like, well, people get paid to help them elevate their dress so that they can get paid more money, they can be taken seriously. And I was just like, oh my god, like I need to find out more about this. So I flew to New York and trained, got globally certified, and I was like, "All right, this is like what I'm going to do. I could take my time. even if I dance here and there, I could build something. For the first time in my life, I felt like, oh, there's a little bit of an outlet. There's a little bit of something that could happen. But then I found out I was pregnant with my daughter a week after I was certified. And while most people would look at a pregnancy test and be elated, like the hardest, your gut drops and you're like, oh, fuck. Okay, so I know that this is in front of me and I want this and I'm going to take on this responsibility, but I knew that I was going to be doing it all by myself. And I'm like, okay, here's another, my life just kind of did this for a long time. It was a little inkling of what I could have and then something and then inkling. And it was like this pattern that kept happening in my life over and over. And honestly, like then I lived in 18 years of survival mode. I think really when my daughter turned about 14 and we had just moved to Austin and I realized, oh my God, she's in high school. I think I need to start figuring out who I am and what I want and what I'm going to do. And like, I just started, like a light bulb went off. Like, you can't live this life anymore of just surviving, just taking care of her, just doing this and neglecting yourself. Cause I neglected myself for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can relate. And the other pattern that you talked about that I know I experienced like crazy, and a lot of my clients experience it as well, is this pattern like every time you get close to that thing that you want, something happens and it all falls apart. It's like this thing
Mhm.
where it just constantly slips through your fingers, or sometimes you get it but you realize it's not what you actually wanted. So, tell me a little bit more about how that kept showing up for you.
So when my daughter was, oh my God, how old was she? She must have been 3 or 4 in the housing market. I had a house, I had a rental home, I had 2 Range Rovers, thought I had my life was really great. I had money in the bank, and then I lost everything. I literally lost the home that I had built for her and I. Ended up moving in with my sister for a month. I had my cars repoed. I had a short sale on the house I was living in. I had to file bankruptcy on everything else. And I just remember feeling utterly like devastated, utterly just helpless, utterly like worthless. And I knew we were okay. I knew I could put money on the table to have food, but like I panicked and I went back to dancing. And it provided me to be able to get our apartment and buy a car for cash. And it just feel like every time I started to make headway, and honestly, it had to be me. Like it's whatever I was doing, but it's just like these patterns kept showing up. And I remember when I had to go back, I felt like just completely like this was the last thing in the world I wanted to do. And it was in a different situation. Because before it was like, "Oh, for my education." Okay, now this time, like, "Oh, my daughter's, like, 3 or 4, and I'm going back to this hellhole of this world that was just" so I wanna say I got really clear about 4 years ago.
Mm.
I wasn't dancing for a long time, but the patterns you're talking about, I had to disrupt those patterns. I lost a lot of friends. I started thinking of me and only me. And that was a weird concept, a
Yeah.
very, very weird concept to say, oh no, you need to heal. You need to focus on your business. Like, what is it? Not what anybody else wants. Stop listening to the outside chatter. Start really dialing in, like, what am I? Who am I? And it's been a progression ever since then.
So, one of the things that I've seen and I hear in your story, it's like there's that first you look to the man to support you, right? The safety and the security. And then you move to the dancing. So that's like taking that sexualized past and looking for the dancing to provide the safety and security. And then you were out of it, but you lose everything and you go back to what you know again. It's like returning to the old identities, but every time performing and being a good girl. So you go back, but every time it feels like, I'm hearing in your story that it feels like it's a little more contractive. Like
Exactly.
every time you revert back to those old identities, it's a little bit worse.
Exactly. Then I just really had to say I had to get rid of friends that were in my life for whatever reasons they were in my life. They weren't really my friends, but I literally my life just became silence.
Was there a breaking point for you? Like for some people, there's just this click aha moment where they get it and they change everything, or it's some another big event that happens. Was there a breaking point that caused you to just flip out of it?
I think I was so tired of years and years, honestly, of wearing me down. My daughter's teenager years were not easy at all. She dealt with a lot of mental health things. Something that I don't talk about a lot is I had 20 years of chronic pain. I had endometriosis stage 4. And when I look back at that as a disease, there's no rhyme or reason why women get it. And I honestly think it's sexual trauma or trauma because we hold so much in our womb area.
Yeah.
And my disease kept getting worse and worse. I was daily, probably 3 weeks out of the month, I was just in pain. But I was like, I'm not going to let it control my life. I'm not going to let it define me. And
Mm,
I was always the person that didn't let things define me. It just was accumulation of like not knowing how I survived these last 20 years, to be honest. And it just wore me down to where I wasn't depressed, but I was like, if I don't change, like I probably had suicidal ideations. And I probably would have never gone there because my daughter means more to me than anything in the world.
yeah.
And I couldn't leave her with 0 parents. It would devastate her, but it was like I needed to make changes and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have direction or guidance. It just started moving forward and in a different way than I had before.
You know, one of my favorite quotes, I think it's a Tony Robbins quote, it's that we change when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change.
Mm,
And I know a lot of us who've had not so easy journeys, that has been the impetus for change, where we actually change the identity. And by changing the identity, I mean lean more into the true identity of who we are. But for so many, it just is crisis that brings you to that point. And there is a point when you start to do it differently.
yep.
And for you, because I know that you're doing it differently now, what is the big marker that lets you know that it's different?
I love myself for the first time. I accepted myself for the first time. I stopped hiding for the first time. I stopped being like I don't know if I was ever ashamed of the dancing. I wasn't. I was more ashamed of pushing the sexual trauma aside, giving it like excuses, and then like no, there's no excuses for that. There's like call it as it is and stop just because it was a family member, oh, they didn't know or this probably happened to them or whatever ever excuse I had put in my mind. And I had never knew that I didn't love myself completely and utterly, like in my soul, like hugging myself. I never knew that was a possibility for me. And when I started to value, like really value myself and stop doubting and all the same patterns, like it's not, it wasn't like one day, it's been a progression. But I think that for me was like, oh my God, there's so much more to life. Like I get sad at some moments where I'm like, I shut myself off to having a life of joy and freedom and peace and ease and being and loving every part of me, every ounce of me. And I think that's been the most beautiful thing that's been happening.
There's one of the things that stands out is, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, whether it's sexual trauma or any other kind of trauma, is we make excuses for what people have done. And because of that, we don't draw our own lines of what's right for us. And I think sometimes when somebody does something that's really terrible, I know for me, I've had multiple occasions of sexual trauma, I've had multiple other things happen, but that perception of trying to make it okay somehow, for some reason, they're okay and they're deserving of being accepted and loved, but I'm not. Even though this happened to me, even though they did this to me, now somewhere in the lines for me, I decided I was not worthy of being loved, that I was the one that was wrong. And what I love in your reclamation story is that you're coming to accept you and that you weren't the one who was wrong and that you don't need to make excuses for what they've done anymore.
For sure.
That's beautiful. And what is that opening up for you?
I think it's opening up. I feel like for a very long time I lived a double life. In fact, I did. I would live this beautiful, being an active, very engaged mom because it was truly like it's still been the best thing that's ever happened. The fact that I get to be her mother is just magical, even though it was the most difficult thing I've ever done. But I think what it's done is like, I just continue to grow. I continue to be able to talk about it,
Yeah.
to be comfortable with talking about it. Still feels like, a little bit icky, you know? Still feels a little uncomfortable. I don't know if it will ever 100% feel comfortable, but I think for me that I know that I want to truly transform others and I want them to have and know that I take a stand not only for myself, but for them. And I don't know if women of sexual trauma will come to me, but it's so common. I don't imagine that there's not going to be a few of those when we're talking about identity and image. And the more that I expose myself, the more vulnerable that I am. I feel that I just connect with people on a deeper level that I love to be able to speak to people now. Like I hate small talk. I just the more and more deep I get, I'm like, if we can't get right to the soul, like it's just not worth a conversation.
Yeah, I get that. And I think it's true that the more open and vulnerable any of us are, is that we become magnetic for the people who we are meant to serve, who we are meant to help. And I know for me, even though I would market to different things over the years, oh, I'm going to help people with this, or I'm going to help people with this, all the people who became my clients still had the similar theme of having gone through similar things that I've gone through. And you said that thing about, I don't know if women with sexual trauma will come to me, but there's a lot of them out there. I think the stats used to be 1 in 3. They could be higher.
It's crazy.
And that was when I knew those stats, I was a teenager. So we got to think about how many people were hiding and not admitting that. And of course, we had the whole Me Too movement. And then I think people started to realize, oh shit, this thing that I thought was maybe not sexual trauma was actually sexual trauma. In fact, I even had a guest on who she was like, had to, when she started to kind of realize it, she had to go and look up the definition to decide whether it was something that happened to her or not.
Wow.
So I think it's a very real thing that's present for a lot of women and a lot of men. I actually know quite a few men who have struggled with the same thing. And
Mhm.
what it does, at least for me, is I went into this place where I tried to control sexuality. So I became hypersexual, but I was always about trying to control it. And so that was one way that it changed my identity. I always talked about it. I always put it on the forefront. I always put sex on the forefront. I used my sexuality constantly because it was my subconscious way of trying to control it. If I'm leading with it, then you can't surprise me. And so for you, in the realm of identity, how do you think it affected how you showed up in your identity?
My sexuality or the trauma of the sexuality
The
or the
trauma.
sexual trauma.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. It showed up in, again, I believe just always wanting to please the others, or my voice was small because it's interesting what you just said. When I was 15 and I had really my first real boyfriend and he was 19, of course, he's too old for me, but I was sneaking around. I lied and said he was 17 and he raped me. And I did not know that was rape because I kept saying no, 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 no. And he kept saying yes. And it happened. And I wasn't ready for that. And I was like, "Oh, shit." That was like I didn't say anything. I just was like, "Okay." Like, my voice was small, and I don't have a small voice.
No.
I have a loud voice. I'm very open and honest and direct, and I've always kinda been that way, but there was always something covering that. If it was the shame or if it was just like, "Well, this is what I'm good for," or one day, or the things that I told myself, the limitations I put on myself, it just kept repeating. Toxic relationships. I had a few of those relationships. I allowed them to bring women back. I allowed drug use. I allowed, the verbal abuse, you name it. I allowed it because I was just hoping for some sense of some piece of love. And
Mm.
if it was sometimes it was good and the rest it was bad, well, at least I have some good moments. And I was, what am I doing? So I had to after my daughter's father, I've not been in a relationship. So after so many years, the patterns keep showing up. Then I completely shut down Fort Knox. Like I'll go out, had relationships, but not relationships.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate when you've been through some stuff. You tend to, we as people, the tendency is to want to shut down and want to close off. And your process of what you bring people through is about opening up to and expanding, even in the face of whatever might be in your past or what might be coming at you in the future. And so I know you are doing that very thing, expanding more and more instead of shutting down. And so, what is that looking like for you? What is that process of, instead of shutting everything down and keeping everything at arm's length, what is that allowing to come into your life as a result
Mm.
of opening up?
So before I get into what it's allowed me to do as opening instead of shutting, my daughter was 14 and we were having an argument and she came into my room and she said, "Mom, if you keep shutting down like Fort Knox, we're never going to be able to work through this." And I was like slap in my face. And it took that moment for me to be like, "Oh, I think that I could see it happening." I'd like third eye view watching it happen and stop, Celeste, stop. And I didn't know any other way because it's what my parents did in their relationships. It's what I continue to do for safety. And I think as I started to work on that again, more and more in the last couple years, oh man, it's allowed me to love again.
Mm,
It's softened me. It's like I can tap into my emotions like on the fly. Like I can get teary and feel I wasn't feeling for so long. I would just feel like hurt, but I wouldn't feel like this love, this growth of my heart just wanting to expand. It's also made me softer because for so long I've been in the masculine, not just in business, but like playing both roles as parents. Like it's very different to be a single parent versus a sole parent. Like she never saw her father after she was 2. Like he never was involved in any shape or form. So it's like I think I put extra pressure on me to really be an amazing parent. So I was living in the masculine for so long. So to be able to soften and understand that's like more such strength in that. There's such to be vulnerable, to be open is not just brave, but there's strength in that. And I had such a skewed view of what that meant. That meant that you are weak, and that meant that you can't get through the hard times if you don't shut down and protect yourself. So, yeah, it's been a really beautiful journey of self love, obviously coming from myself first. It's like every time I see the airplanes, every time you get on the airplane, put the mask on yourself before you put it on the kid. I was always putting it on my child before I was putting it on me. And I'm like, oh, if there's any left, I'll take, a sip of it. And to be able to flip that around and be like, oh my God, because nobody could give me what I've given myself. No one can give you that.
Yeah. One of the things that as I'm watching you, and I've noticed, like, your outfit is amazing. It's impeccable. For the people who are listening, you can't see it. Just trust me. It's beautiful. But what I'm noticing as we're here in this conversation is that I don't even notice the outfit so much, because what I'm feeling from you is you. And I'm noticing that your outfit doesn't take away from that it is in alignment with that. And I think the way you work with your clients to work from the inside out, I think that piece is really beautiful, what I'm witnessing in you, because we've all seen a million celebrities who it's like the outfit is wearing them, or that they're way bigger than the outfit. There's not this alignment that really happens. And I think it takes somebody really special who can do it for themselves to be able to do that for somebody else.
Yeah. I love being able to do that. A lot of people don't understand their personality plays the biggest role in your image, in the colors, in the fabrics, in the fit, in the print or not print, or what kind of print, or it just gets really deep. And I think when people finally see that they can bring their outer personality or their inner personality period onto outer appearance, it's like something is really moving and transforming in a way that others, because we see visually, we see things within seconds, right? On somebody, the first thing's color, and color sends a message. And then we see fit, we see fabric. And what this is telling us, it stems back from caveman days, whether we're danger or not. But today, it's like, okay, what is the message? And it just happens. Green is growth and vitality. We've got this like, you see that about me, and then I open my mouth, and you're like, oh, everything makes sense.
Yeah. And you see so many people that they're wearing one thing and they open their mouth and it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a big, I mean, I'm sure it attracts certain people. If you want to attract people who are misaligned, then go for it. But if you want to attract people who are in alignment for you to help line you up with the things that you're meant to have, I think it's really important to match the inside with the outside. How do people get in touch with you? How do they work with you?
Yeah. They get in touch with me. My website, celestemore.com. I'm on socials, all on every platform, primarily Instagram, LinkedIn, Celeste Moore Image. And it's a process of how people work with me. And typically, I love to work with them for a year. That's like really the beautiful spot. But you can work with me for 6 months and still get the same achievement, the same transformation. So, yeah, you can just look me up and send me a DM or book a call with me, and we can always have a chat.
Okay, so everybody, I'm going to ask you one more question, but open up your browsers. Look at the website, Celeste Moore.
.com.
And then
Mhm.
the Instagram is Celeste Moore Image.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So the Be the Wolf thing is all about being who you're meant to be. For you, though, we've talked about the different layers of that metaphor. For you, what does being the wolf mean?
I feel that means to me is really truly for me in itself is recognizing who I am, loving and accepting every part of me of who I am, and then integrating myself into the world so that I'm here to make differences. I'm here to change the world. I know that I am. And I think it's really just owning who I am at the core, not ever wearing a mask again.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing who you are with us today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. And remember, everybody, when you operate from the truth of who you are, humanity evolves. We'll see you all next time on Be the Wolf. Bye.